I feel like I've earned something. I feel, above all else, that I want his milk down my throat now. It's a smaller crowd, even for an open mic. There's no way anyone else is paying attention the same way I am. Maybe they'd go along with it. Maybe that's what comedy is. Hell if I know, I'm not a critic. The spotlight burned hotter than I expected, a blinding halo that pinned me to the sticky floor of the comedy club like a moth under glass. I wasn't supposed to be up here. I'm not a comedian, not by a long shot, but the mic was in my hand and the crowd's eyes were on me, hungry for something, laughter, a breakdown, anything to break the silence. My best friend, Leo, had dared me to crash the open mic at the Laughing Low FT in Chicago's Wicker Park, swearing it'd be hilarious to see me flounder. Except now Leo was nowhere in sight, and the guy running the show, a wiry dude with a man bun, was glaring from the sidelines, probably debating whether to yank me off stage. I opened my mouth, and all that came out was a choked, "So, anyone here from our town?" The crowd murmured, a few pity chuckles rippling through the dim room. My palms were slick, my heart hammering so loud I swore they could hear it. Then I saw him, sitting at a high top near the bar, his hazel eyes catching the stage light like they were made for it. He was leaning forward, elbows on the table, his dark hair falling just shy of his jaw. He wasn't laughing. He was watching with an intensity that made my knees wobble. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. Not just because I was bombing on stage, but because I'd never felt a stranger's gaze hit me like that before. Let me back up. My name's Eli Harper. I'm 27, and I've got this thing for stand-up comedians. It's not just a hobby. It's an obsession, one I've never quite explained to anyone, not even Leo, who thinks I just like cheap laughs and late nights. I'm not chasing fame or trying to be one of them. It's the way they bare their souls under those harsh lights, weaving their insecurities into punchlines, begging for approval while pretending they don't care. There's something raw, almost electric about it. And yeah, maybe I'm drawn to the ones who are easy on the eyes, too. I'm a gay guy in Chicago. Sue me for having a type. That night at the Laughing Loft, I hadn't planned to do anything but sip a soda and watch the lineup, maybe let my imagination wander. Leo's dare changed everything. He'd been egging me on all week, calling me too predictable for sticking to my routine of coffee shops, graphic design gigs, and comedy clubs. Live a little, Eli, he'd said, smirking over his latte. Crash the stage. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words. So there I was, flopping spectacularly, when the guy with the hazel eyes stood up. I thought he was leaving, fed up with my train wreck of a performance, but instead he walked toward the stage. The crowd parted like he owned the place, and before I knew it, he was climbing the steps, his boots thudding softly on the wood. He stopped beside me, close enough that I caught the faint scent of cedar and mint on him. "Mind if I help you out?" he asked, his voice low, smooth, like he was used to talking people off ledges. I blinked, too stunned to answer. He didn't wait for permission, just took the mic from my hand, his fingers brushing mine for a split second, sending a jolt through me, and faced the crowd. "All right, folks, give it up for Eli, who's clearly never done this before," he said, flashing a grin that was equal parts charm and mischief. The audience laughed, real laughter this time, and I felt my face burn. "I'm Caleb," he continued, "and I'm going to save this poor guy from himself." Caleb. The name hit me like a drumbeat. He launched into a bit about Chicago winters, his delivery so effortless, it was like he was born with a mic in his hand. The crowd ate it up, and I just stood there, half-dazed, watching the way his hands moved, the way his eyes flicked to me every few seconds, like he was checking if I was still breathing. He was gorgeous, tall, maybe 6 feet 1 inch, with a lean build and a jawline that could cut glass. But it wasn't just that. It was the way he owned the room, turning my disaster into his triumph without breaking a sweat. When he finally handed the mic back, the crowd was still clapping, and he leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "You owe me one, Eli," he whispered, then hopped off the stage and disappeared into the crowd. I stumbled through a shaky "thank you" to the audience and bolted backstage, my pulse racing. Who was this guy? And why did I feel like I'd just been struck by lightning? Backstage, the man bun guy, whose name tag read Todd, was less than thrilled. "You're lucky Caleb bailed you out," he snapped, jabbing a finger at me. "Don't pull that stunt again, or you're banned." I nodded, barely listening, my eyes scanning the room for Caleb. He was gone, but the memory of his voice, his touch, was seared into me. I needed to find him, to thank him, to, I don't know, figure out why he'd stepped in like some kind of comedy night in shining denim. I stepped outside into the chilly Chicago night, the neon sign of the Laughing Loft buzzing above me. Wicker Park was alive. Couples laughing, street musicians strumming, the smell of tacos wafting from a nearby food truck. I checked my phone, a text from Leo. "Dude, where'd you go?" That was epic. I rolled my eyes and pocketed it. Leo could wait. I was on a mission. That's when I saw him again, leaning against a brick wall across the street, scrolling on his phone. "Caleb." My heart did a flip, and before I could overthink it, I jogged over. "Hey," I called, trying to sound casual. He looked up, those hazel eyes locking onto mine, and a slow smile spread across his face. "Didn't expect to see you again so soon," he said, pocketing his phone. "You all right after that stage dive?" "Barely," I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck. "Why'd you save me up there?" He shrugged, but there was a glint in his eyes like he knew something I didn't. "Seemed like you needed it. Plus, you look kind of cute, floundering like that." My breath caught. Was he flirting? Before I could respond, he pushed off the wall, closing the distance between us. "You really in a band? Or was that just stage panic talking?" I laughed, nervous. "I play bass." Or, I did. Band on a break. It wasn't a total lie, but I wasn't about to admit I was a part-time graphic designer scraping by on freelance gigs. "Too bad," Caleb said, his voice teasing. "I bet you look good with a bass in your hands." Okay, definitely flirting. My face heated up, and I scrambled for something clever to say, but then his phone buzzed, and his expression shifted, something guarded, almost wary. He glanced at the screen, then back at me. "Gotta run, Eli. But I'll see you around, yeah?" "Sure," I managed, but he was already walking away, his silhouette blending into the crowd. I stood there, the night air cooling my flushed skin, replaying every word, every glance. Caleb wasn't just a comedian. He was a mystery, one I was already desperate to unravel. What I didn't know then was that Caleb wasn't just some random hero. He had secrets, ones that would drag me into a world of ambition, betrayal, and heartbreak, and make me question everything I thought I knew about desire. The Laughing Loft's neon sign flickered like a bad omen as I pushed through the crowd 2 nights later, my heart thudding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. I hadn't seen Caleb since our brief encounter outside the club, but his words, "I'll see you around, yeah?" had been looping in my head like a catchy song I couldn't shake. I'd spent the last 48 hours scouring social media for any trace of him, but Caleb, Chicago comedian, yielded nothing but dead ends. No Instagram, no X profile, not even a grainy YouTube clip. It was like he'd vanished into the city's pulse, leaving me chasing a ghost. Tonight, I was back at the loft, not because of Leo's dares or my usual comedian fixation, but because I needed to find Caleb. Something about him, those hazel eyes, that effortless confidence, had hooked me deeper than any performer ever had. I told myself it was just curiosity, but the way my stomach flipped every time I thought of his smile said otherwise. I was in Chicago, the city of big shoulders and bigger dreams, and I was falling for a stranger who might not even exist. The club was packed, the air thick with chatter and the clink of glasses. I slid into a seat near the stage, scanning the room. No Caleb. BMC, Todd, was back, his man bun tighter than his patience. He introduced the first act, a nervous woman with a bit about dating apps that got polite laughs. I barely listened, my eyes darting to the door every time it swung open. By the third act, I was starting to feel like a fool. Maybe Caleb was a one-off, a fleeting spark I'd built into something more. Then the stage lights dimmed, and Todd's voice crackled through the mic. Next up, a guy who's been tearing it up lately. Give it up for Caleb Monroe. My heart stopped. Monroe. That was new. The crowd clapped as Caleb strode on stage, his presence commanding the room like he'd flipped a switch. He wore a black button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his dark hair was tucked behind one ear. He looked different tonight, sharper, almost dangerous, like he was playing a part he hadn't shown me before. "Thanks, Chicago," Caleb said, his voice smooth as velvet. "You ever notice how this city makes you feel like you're starring in your own movie? Except half the time, it's a thriller, and you're not sure who the villain is." The crowd laughed, but I felt a chill. His eyes swept the room, landing on me for a split second, and I swear his smile faltered before he launched into his set. He was good, better than good. His jokes about late-night CTA rides and overpriced coffee were sharp, but there was an edge to them, like he was holding something back. I leaned forward, hanging on every word, but my mind was racing. Why hadn't I found him online? And why did he look at me like he was surprised I was here? Halfway through his set, he shifted to crowd work, zeroing in on a guy in a Cubs hat. "What's your deal, man? You look like you're hiding from someone." The guy laughed, mumbling something about a bad date, but Caleb's grin didn't reach his eyes. It was like he was scanning for threats, not laughs. When his set ended, the applause was thunderous, but Caleb didn't linger. He gave a quick wave and slipped backstage, leaving me clutching my soda like a lifeline. I had to talk to him, but the club was a maze of bodies, and Todd was eyeing me like he hadn't forgotten my stage-crashing stunt. I waited until the next act started, then made my move, weaving through the crowd toward the backstage door. I was halfway there when a hand grabbed my arm. "Eli, what the heck are you doing?" It was Leo, his blonde curls bouncing as he tugged me back. His eyes were wide, like he'd seen a ghost. "You're not sneaking backstage, are you? That's like a one-way ticket to getting banned." "I need to see Caleb," I said, shaking him off. "He's different, Leo. I can't explain it." Leo frowned, his usual smirk gone. "Dude, you're obsessed. This isn't like your usual comedian crush. You don't even know this guy." "I know enough." I snapped, but his words stung. Was I losing it? Chasing some fantasy because a hot comedian had thrown me a lifeline? Before I could second-guess myself, the backstage door swung open, and Caleb stepped out, his jacket slung over one shoulder. He froze when he saw me, his expression unreadable. "Eli," he said, his voice low, "you're persistent, I'll give you that." I swallowed, my mouth dry. "You were amazing up there. I just wanted to say thanks again. For the other night." He studied me, his hazel eyes searching mine like he was weighing a decision. "You shouldn't be back here," he said, but there was no bite in his tone. "Come with me." He nodded toward a side exit, and against every rational instinct, I followed him. Outside, the alley was narrow, lit by a flickering street lamp. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of Lake Michigan. Caleb leaned against the brick wall, pulling a pack of gum from his pocket and popping a piece in his mouth. "You're not like the usual comedy nerds," he said, his tone teasing but cautious. "What's your deal, Eli?" I hesitated, my obsession with comedians feeling too raw to confess. "I like the way you guys tell stories," I said finally. "It's real. Makes me feel something." Caleb's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Careful. You start feeling too much, you might get hurt." There was again that edge like he was warning me. Before I could press him, a car screeched to a stop at the alley's mouth, its headlights blinding. Caleb tensed, his hand gripping my wrist. "Stay here," he hissed, stepping in front of me. The driver's door opened, and a woman climbed out, her silhouette sharp against the light. She was tall, with short, platinum hair and a leather jacket that screamed trouble. "Caleb," she called, her voice clipped. "We need to talk. Now." "Not here," Caleb shot back, his body rigid. "Not with him around." The woman's eyes flicked to me, narrowing. "Who's this?" Another fanboy. Her tone was mocking, but there was something else. Jealousy, maybe, or something darker. "He's nobody," Caleb said, too quickly. My stomach twisted. Nobody? After he'd saved me, flirted with me, pull me out here? "Eli, go back inside," he added, not looking at me. I wanted to argue, to demand answers, but the woman's glare and Caleb's sudden distance stopped me. I backed away, my heart pounding, and slipped back into the club. The noise hit me like a wave, but it couldn't drown out the questions screaming in my head. Who was she? Why was Caleb so spooked? And why did I feel like I just stepped into something way bigger than a comedy crush? Back in my seat, Leo was waiting, his arms crossed. Well, did you get your fairy tale moment? Something like that. I muttered, my eyes on the stage where a new comedian was fumbling through a joke. But my mind was in that alley, replaying Caleb's grip on my wrist, the woman's voice, the way he'd call me nobody. I wasn't just chasing a spark anymore. I was chasing a storm, and I had a feeling it was about to break. The laughing loft felt like a trap now, its dim lights and raucous laughter mocking me as I sat at a corner table, nursing a ginger ale. It had been 3 days since the alley incident, and Caleb's words, "He's nobody," still stung like a fresh cut. I'd replayed that night 100 times, trying to make sense of the woman in the leather jacket, Caleb's sudden coldness, and the way my heart had betrayed me by racing for someone who dismissed me so easily. Yet here I was back at the club, because apparently I was a glutton for punishment. Chicago's autumn chill had settled in, and Wicker Park buzzed outside with hipsters and late-night taco runs. But inside the loft, the air was thick with anticipation. I wasn't here for the comedy tonight, though. I was here for answers. Caleb hadn't performed since that night, and my online searches for Caleb Monroe, comedian, still turned up nothing. It was like he was a phantom, slipping through the city's cracks. But I wasn't giving up. Not yet. The MC, Todd, was in rare form, cracking jokes about the Cubs' latest loss before introducing the next act. I barely listened, my eyes scanning the crowd for Caleb's telltale dark hair or those hazel eyes that had haunted my dreams. Instead, I noticed a new face, a guy sitting 2 tables over, scribbling furiously in a notebook. He was maybe 30, with curly auburn hair and wire-rimmed glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He looked like a professor who'd wandered into the wrong venue, but the way he watched the stage, like he was dissecting every punchline, screamed insider. The current act, a loud guy with a bit about pizza toppings, was bombing, and the crowd's laughter was more pity than genuine. I took a chance and slid into the seat across from the notebook guy. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, keeping my tone light. He looked up, startled, then pushed his glasses up. Sure. You a comic?" "Nah, just a fan." I leaned forward, glancing at his notebook. It was filled with names, dates, and what looked like performance notes. "You scouting or something?" He hesitated, then closed the notebook. "Something like that. Name's Julian." His voice had a slight southern drawl, warm but guarded. "I'm a booker for a couple of clubs downtown." "And you are?" "Eli," I said, my mind racing. A booker might know Caleb. "You ever work with a guy named Caleb Monroe? He performed here a few nights ago. Killed it." Julian's expression shifted just for a second, something like recognition, maybe suspicion. "Caleb, huh?" He tapped his pen against the table. "Yeah, I've heard of him. New guy, right?" Popped up out of nowhere. "Why were you asking?" I shrugged, playing it cool. "Just thought he was good. Haven't seen him around since." Julian studied me, his green eyes sharp behind his glasses. "He's elusive. Talented, but he doesn't stick to one spot long." "You a friend of his?" "Not exactly." I hesitated, then decided to take a risk. "We met the other night. He helped me out a jam on stage. I'm just trying to track him down." Julian's lips twitched, almost a smirk. "Carethol, Eli. Guys like Caleb? They're like shooting stars, bright, but gone before you can blink." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "If you're looking for him, check the Blue Note in Lincoln Park tomorrow night. He's been spotted there. But don't expect him to be happy to see you." My pulse quickened. A lead. "Thanks, Julian. I owe you one." "Don't thank me yet," he said, his tone cryptic. "Just watch your back." Before I could ask what he meant, he grabbed his notebook and slipped into the crowd, leaving me with more questions than answers. The next night, I was at the Blue Note, a sleeker venue with velvet curtains and a jazz club vibe. Lincoln Park's tree-lined streets felt a world away from Wicker Park's gritty edge, but my nerves were just as raw. The club was half full, the crowd more polished, think tech bros and art gallery types. I found a spot near the bar, my eyes glued to the stage as the first act wrapped up. When Caleb finally appeared, it was like the room tilted. He wore a navy blazer, his hair loose and framing his face, and his smile was all charm as he grabbed the mic. "Lincoln Park You guys ever realize you're basically living in a rom-com set? The crowd laughed, and I felt a pang of jealousy. He was theirs now, not mine. His set was tighter than at the loft, his jokes about dating apps and overpriced rent hitting every mark. But I noticed something else, a tension in his shoulders, a quick glance at the exits like he was ready to bolt. When his set ended, I didn't wait. I pushed through the crowd, ignoring the bartender's glare, and caught Caleb as he stepped off stage. "Caleb," I called, my voice sharper than I meant. He turned, and for a moment, his face was unguarded, surprise, maybe even guilt. "Eli," he said, recovering quickly. "You're a long way from Wicker Park. You're a hard guy to find." I shot back, crossing my arms. "What was that the other night? The alley, the woman calling me nobody?" Caleb's jaw tightened, and he glanced around, like he was checking for eavesdroppers. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low. "That wasn't about you." "Then what was it about?" I stepped closer, my frustration boiling over. "You can't just swoop in, save me, flirt with me, then act like I'm invisible." "Who was she, Caleb?" He ran a hand through his hair, his cool facade cracking. "Her name's Vanessa. She's complicated. Look, Eli, you seem like a good guy, but you're in over your head. Walk away." "Too late for that," I said, my voice steady despite the way my heart raced. "I'm not walking away until I get some answers." Caleb's eyes searched mine, and for a second, I thought he might actually tell me something. Then his phone buzzed, and he cursed under his breath, checking the screen. "I gotta go," he said, already moving. "Stay out of this, Eli, for your own sake." He was gone before I could stop him, disappearing through a staff-only door. I stood there, my fists clenched, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. As I left the Blue Note, the night air hit me like a slap. I was about to call an Uber when I saw her. Vanessa, the woman from the alley, leaning against a sleek black car parked across the street. Her platinum hair glowed under the streetlight, and her eyes locked onto mine, cold and calculating. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched me like a predator sizing up prey. My phone pinged, and I glanced down, expecting a text from Leo. Instead, it was an unknown number. "Stop chasing Caleb. You'll regret it." My blood ran cold. I looked up, but Vanessa was gone, the car speeding away into the night. I stood frozen, the weight of the message sinking in. Who was Vanessa to Caleb? A manager? A Yelisix? And why was she warning me off? My obsession with comedians had always been a safe escape, a way to feel something without risking anything. But now I was tangled in something real, something dangerous. And the worst part? I didn't want to stop. Caleb's secrets, Vanessa's threats, the way my heart pounded when he looked at me. It was all pulling me deeper, and I was ready to dive in, no matter the cost. The text message burned a hole in my pocket as I stood outside the Blue Note, the Chicago wind biting at my knuckles. "Stop chasing Caleb. You'll regret it." Vanessa's face, those cold, predatory eyes, flashed in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd stumbled into a game where I didn't know the rules. I'm Eli Harper, a graphic designer with a thing for comedians, not some private eye-chasing conspiracies. But Caleb Monroe, with his hazel eyes and guarded secrets, had me hooked, and that anonymous warning only made me more determined to uncover the truth. It was Saturday night, and Lincoln Park's upscale vibe felt suffocating as I walked away from the club, my breath fogging in the crisp air. I needed a plan. Ignoring Vanessa's threat wasn't brave. It was reckless. But going home and pretending none of this happened felt like giving up. I pulled out my phone, hesitating, then texted Julian, the booker I'd met at the Laughing Loft. If anyone knew more about Caleb, it was him. "Hey, it's Eli. Any chance you're free to talk? Need info on Caleb Monroe." Julian's reply came within minutes. "Meet me at the Bean, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Bring coffee." I stared at the screen, surprised he'd agreed so fast. The Bean, Chicago's iconic cloud gate sculpture in Millennium Park, was a public spot, safe but exposed. Maybe Julian was as cautious as I was starting to feel. The next morning, I arrived early, 2 coffees in hand, the giant silver sculpture reflecting a distorted version of the city skyline. Tourists snapped selfies, and joggers weaved through the crowd, but I felt like I was in a spotlight again, waiting for Julian to show. When he finally appeared, his auburn curls were tucked under a beanie, and his glasses fogged slightly in the cool air. He took the coffee with a nod, but his usual warmth was gone, replaced by a wary edge. "You're digging into something messy, Eli," Julian said, sipping his coffee as we walked toward the park's edge. "Caleb's not just some up-and-coming comic. He's got history." "What kind of history?" I asked, my stomach nodding. "And why some woman named Vanessa threatening me to stay away?" Julian stopped, his green eyes narrowing. "Vanessa? You met her." He cursed under his breath, glancing around like he expected her to pop out of the crowd. "Okay, look, I don't know everything, but Caleb's been on the comedy circuit for years, just not under Monroe. He used to go by Caleb Reed. He was big in New York, off-Broadway gigs, late-night TV spots. Then he vanished 2 years ago. Poof. No explanation." I frowned, trying to process it. Why change his name? What happened? Julian shrugged, but his expression was tight. "Rumors say he got mixed up with the wrong people. Managers, maybe, or worse. Vanessa's one of them. She's his agent, or was. Word is, she's got a tight grip on him. Controls his gigs, his money, maybe more. If she's warning you off, you're closer to him than she likes." My mind raced. Caleb, a rising star who'd crashed and burned? It explained his polished sets, his guarded demeanor, but not why he'd saved me that first night or flirted with me in the alley. "So what's her deal? Why is she so protective?" Julian hesitated, then leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Some say she's not just an agent. She's got ties to people who don't play nice, promoters, investors, the kind who make problems disappear. Caleb might owe her something big. Or maybe he's running from her. Either way, you're not just chasing a crush, Eli. You're poking a hornet's nest." I swallowed hard, the coffee turning sour in my mouth. "I just want to know who he is, Julian. He's different. I can't let it go." Julian sighed, adjusting his glasses. "I get it. He's got that spark. Makes you feel like you're the only one in the room. But trust me, Eli, sparks like that can burn." He handed me a slip of paper with an address scrawled on it. "This is a comedy dive bar in Logan Square. Caleb's doing a low-key set tonight. If you're hell-bent on this, go. But don't say I didn't warn you." I pocketed the address, my resolve hardening. "Thanks, Julian. I owe you." "You owe me more than coffee if this goes south," he said, half smiling, but his eyes were serious. He walked away, blending into the crowd, and I was left staring at the bean's warped reflection, my own face distorted and unrecognizable. That night, I found myself at the Rusty Mike, a grungy bar in Logan Square with peeling paint and a stage barely bigger than a coffee table. The crowd was sparse, mostly locals and a few diehard comedy nerds. I kept my hood up, trying to blend in, but my nerves were electric as I waited for Caleb. When he took the stage, it was like the room shrank. He was dressed down, jeans, a faded band tee. But his presence was magnetic, his jokes about Chicago's potholes and dive bars landing with effortless charm. Halfway through his set, he spotted me. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a split second his rhythm faltered, a flicker of something. Fear? Longing? Crossing his face. He recovered fast, but I knew he'd seen me. When his set ended, I braced myself, expecting him to bolt again. Instead, he made his way to my table, his expression a mix of frustration and something softer. "You don't listen, do you?" Caleb said, sliding into the seat across from me. His voice was low, but there was no anger in it, just exhaustion. "Not when you keep dodging me." I shot back, leaning forward. "Caleb Reed, that's you, isn't it? What happened in New York? Why's Vanessa got you on a leash?" His face paled, and he glanced at the door, like he expected Vanessa to storm in. "How do you know that name?" He hissed, his hazel eyes blazing. "Who have you been talking to?" "Doesn't matter," I said, holding his gaze. "I'm not here to screw you over, Caleb. I just need to know what I'm getting into. Because I'm getting into it, whether you like it or not." He stared at me, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he couldn't say. Finally, he leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "You're stubborn as hell, Eli." "Fine, but not here." He stood, nodding toward the back door. 5 minutes. Then you decide if you still want to play hero." Outside, the alley was quiet, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. Caleb paced, his breath visible in the cold. I was somebody in New York, he said, his voice raw. Had a deal lined up with a streaming service, big money. Then I crossed the wrong person, Vanessa's boss. They don't just manage talent, Eli. They own you. I tried to get out, and it cost me everything. New name, new city, but they found me. My heart pounded. Who are they? What do they want? Money. Control. Me. He stopped pacing, his eyes meeting mine. I didn't mean to drag you into this. That night at the loft, I saw you floundering, and, I don't know, you reminded me of who I used to be. Before all this. His words hit me hard, stirring something I couldn't name. So why push me away? Why call me nobody? Because you should be nobody, he said, stepping closer, his voice urgent. You're too damn real, Eli. You make me want things I can't have. His hand brushed my arm, and the air between us crackled, his closeness sending my pulse into overdrive. Before I could respond, headlights flooded the alley. A car door slammed, and Vanessa's voice cut through the night. Caleb, you're testing my patience. She stepped into view, her platinum hair stark against her dark coat, and behind her was a man, broad, silent, his presence screaming trouble. Caleb's hand tightened on my arm. Run, he whispered, but my feet were rooted, my heart torn between fear and the pull of his touch. Vanessa's eyes locked onto me, and I knew I'd just made myself a target. The alley behind the rusty mic was a frozen snapshot of danger, Vanessa's silhouette sharp against the glare of headlights, the broad man at her side like a shadow ready to strike. Caleb's whispered run echoed in my ears, but my legs wouldn't move. His hand was still on my arm, his touch a tether keeping me from bolting. I'm Eli Harper, a guy who's supposed to be designing logos, not staring down what felt like a Chicago mob scene. But Caleb's hazel eyes, wide with fear and something else, regret, maybe, held me there, and I knew I was in too deep to turn back. Eli, go, Caleb urged, his voice low but desperate, pushing me toward the bar's back door. Vanessa took a step forward, her platinum hair catching the light like a blade, and the man beside her cracked his knuckles, a sound that made my stomach lurch. Not so fast, Caleb, Vanessa said, her voice smooth but laced with venom. You don't get to play knight in shining armor. And you, she turned to me, her eyes narrowing, you're making this harder than it needs to be. I opened my mouth to snap back, but Caleb stepped in front of me, his posture rigid. Leave him out of this, Vanessa. He's got nothing to do with it. Oh, he's got everything to do with it now, she said, a smirk curling her lips. You're slipping, Caleb, getting sloppy. You think I don't see the way you look at him? Her words hit like a punch, and I felt my face heat up, even as fear clawed my chest. Was she jealous? Or was this about control? The man, silent, hulking, moved closer, and that broke my paralysis. I grabbed Caleb's wrist, yanking him toward the door. Come on, I hissed, adrenaline surging. We stumbled inside, the door slamming shut behind us, and I bolted it, my hands shaking. The bar's noise, laughter, clinking glasses, felt surreal against the pounding in my ears. Caleb leaned against the wall, catching his breath. You shouldn't have done that, he said, but there was no anger in his voice, just a heavy resignation. She's not going to let this go. Then tell me what's going on, I demanded, my voice sharper than I meant. Who's she working for? What do they want from you? He looked at me, his expression torn, like he was weighing whether to trust me. Before he could answer, a loud bang rattled the door, and I jumped. Caleb. Vanessa's voice was muffled but unmistakable. You can't hide forever. We need to move, I said, scanning the cramped hallway. There was a side exit leading to the street, and I didn't wait for Caleb's approval. I grabbed his hand, pulling him along, and we burst onto the sidewalk, the Logan Square night alive with bar hoppers and neon signs. We ducked into a crowded taco joint across the street, blending into the chaos of late-night eaters. Inside, we slid into a booth, the smell of carne asada and cilantro grounding me slightly. Caleb's face was pale, his hands fidgeting with a napkin. I'm sorry, Eli, he said finally, his voice barely audible over the chatter. I didn't mean to pull you into my mess. Then why did you? I asked, leaning forward. You could have ignored me that first night at the loft. Why save me? Why flirt with me? Why keep me close if you knew it was dangerous? He met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw past the comedian's charm, past the guarded walls. Because you're real, he said, his voice raw. You look at me like I'm more than a punchline. I've been running so long, I forgot what that feels like. My heart skipped, but before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. You can't protect him. Back off, or you're next. I showed Caleb the screen, and his jaw clenched. That's not Vanessa, he said, his voice tight. She's bold, but she doesn't hide behind texts. Someone else is watching. A chill ran through me. Who? The people you owe? Her boss. Caleb hesitated, then nodded. His name's Marcus Kane. Runs a syndicate out of New York, promoters, clubs, dirty money. I was his golden boy until I found out what he was really doing. Try to walk away, but you don't just quit Marcus. Vanessa's his enforcer, keeps me in line. Or tries to. I stared at him, the pieces clicking together. So you're hiding in Chicago, using a fake name, hoping they forget you? Pretty much, he said, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. But they don't forget. And now you're on their radar. I should have been terrified. And part of me was, but another part, the reckless part that chased comedians and crashed open mics, was electrified. Caleb wasn't just a mystery. He was a man fighting to be free, and I wanted to help him, no matter the cost. Then we fight back, I said, my voice steady. Together. Caleb's eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and something warmer, like hope. You're crazy, Eli Harper. Maybe, I said, managing a grin. But I'm not letting you face this alone. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, and the touch sent a spark through me, equal parts fear and desire. For a moment, it was just us, the world's chaos fading. Then the door chime rang, and I glanced up, my heart stopping. Julian, the booker, stood in the entrance, his auburn curls unmistakable. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on us, and I saw it, a flash of guilt or maybe betrayal. Caleb, I whispered, nodding toward Julian. He's here. Caleb followed my gaze, and his face hardened. Son of a, he's working with them. What? I hissed, my mind reeling. He's the one who told me where to find you. Exactly, Caleb said, his voice low. He's been feeding Vanessa info. Probably Marcus, too. That's why she keeps finding me. Before I could process it, Julian started toward us, his expression unreadable. Caleb grabbed my hand, pulling me up. We're leaving. Now. We slipped out the back, dodging a group of drunk college kids, and ran down an alley, the night air sharp in my lungs. We didn't stop until we reached a quiet street, the city's hum distant. Caleb leaned against a brick wall, catching his breath. I trusted him, he said, his voice breaking. Julian was my friend in New York. Helped me book my first big gig. Now he's selling me out. I touched his shoulder, my heart aching for him. We'll figure this out, I said, though I had no idea how. But we need a plan. Somewhere safe. He nodded, his eyes meeting mine. There's a place, an old theater in Pilsen. I used to crash there when I first got to Chicago. It's off the grid. We can lie low, figure out our next move. Pilsen? I said, raising an eyebrow. That's a hike. Got a better idea? He asked, a hint of his old smirk returning. I didn't. So we hailed a cab, the driver barely glancing at us as we gave him the address. The ride was silent, Caleb's hand resting close to mine on the seat, the tension between us thick with unspoken words. Pilsen's colorful murals and Takarius flashed by, a vibrant contrast to the storm brewing inside me. The theater was a crumbling relic, its marquee faded but still reading Starlight Playhouse. Caleb picked the lock with practiced ease, and we slipped inside, the air musty and cool. The stage was empty, rows of velvet seats gathering dust, but there was a strange beauty to it, like a forgotten dream. We're safe here, Caleb said, his voice echoing softly. For now. I turned to him, the weight of the night crashing down. Caleb, what happens next? If Marcus and Vanessa are after you, and Julian's betraying you, how do we stop this? He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. I don't know, Eli, but for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm facing it alone. His hand cupped my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin, and my breath caught. The world narrowed to his touch, his warmth, the promise of something neither of us could name. Then a floorboard creaked behind us, and we froze. Someone was in the theater. The creak of the floorboard in the Starlight Playhouse was like a gunshot in the silence, shattering the fragile moment between Caleb and me. His hand dropped from my cheek, his body tensing as he spun toward the sound. My heart slammed against my ribs, the dusty air of the old theater thick with dread. We were supposed to be safe here, hidden in this forgotten corner of Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood. But someone had found us, and the shadows pooling in the auditorium felt alive with threat. "Stay behind me," Caleb whispered, his voice steady but laced with urgency. He stepped forward, his silhouette sharp against the faint moonlight filtering through a cracked skylight. I followed, my pulse racing, every instinct screaming to run, but my feet rooted by the need to protect him, or at least face this with him. I'm Eli Harper, a guy who's supposed to be sketching logos, not playing hero in some gritty drama, but Caleb's fight had become mine, and there was no turning back. Another creak, closer now, from the direction of the stage. Caleb grabbed a rusted prop sword from a pile of abandoned set pieces, holding it like he actually knew how to use it. I scanned the darkness, my eyes adjusting to the dim outlines of velvet seats and faded curtains. Then a figure emerged from the wings, stepping into a sliver of light. It wasn't Vanessa or her hulking sidekick. It was Julian, his auburn curls disheveled, his glasses glinting as he raised his hands in surrender. "Don't swing," Julian said, his southern drawl tight with nerves. "It's just me." Caleb didn't lower the sword. "What the hell are you doing here, Julian?" His voice was ice, betrayal cutting through every word. "You sold me out. Vanessa's been one step behind me because of you." Julian's face crumpled, guilt written in every line. "I didn't have a choice, Caleb. You know how Marcus works. He doesn't ask, he demands." He took a cautious step forward, his eyes flicking to me. "Eli, I'm sorry you got caught up in this. I tried to warn you." "Warn me?" I snapped, my anger flaring. "You sent me to that dive bar, knowing Vanessa would show up. You're playing both sides, Julian." He flinched but didn't deny it. "I'm trying to fix it," he said, his voice breaking. "That's why I'm here. Marcus is closing in. He knows you're in Chicago, Caleb, and he's done playing nice. Vanessa's got orders to bring you back to New York, or make sure you don't talk." Caleb's grip on the sword tightened, his jaw clenched. "Talk about what? His money laundering? The fake promoters? I've got nothing left to give him." Julian shook his head, his expression grim. "It's not just that. You saw something you weren't supposed to, didn't you? That night in Brooklyn, before you ran. Marcus thinks you got proof." My stomach dropped. "Proof?" Caleb's face went pale, and for the first time, I saw fear, real, raw fear, in his eyes. "I don't have anything," he said, but his voice wavered, and I knew he was lying. To Julian, to me, maybe even to himself. "Stop it, Caleb," Julian said, stepping closer. "You're not fooling anyone. Marcus won't stop until he's sure you're silenced." And Eli, he turned to me, his eyes pleading. "You're not just collateral anymore. They think you're helping him hide it." I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. "Hide what?" I demanded, looking between them. "Caleb, what's he talking about?" Caleb's shoulders slumped, the sword clattering to the stage. "It was a ledger," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "In Marcus's office, 2 years ago. Names, dates, payments, proof he's been rigging comedy festivals, skimming millions, using clubs as fronts. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. I took a photo, thought I could use it to get out. Then I panicked and ran." "You still have it?" Julian asked, his voice urgent. Caleb nodded, his eyes meeting mine, full of guilt. "On a flash drive. Hidden. I thought if I stayed low, they'd forget about me. But they never do." I stared at him, my mind reeling. This wasn't just about a comedian on the run. This was bigger, dangerous, life-altering. And I was in the middle of it, not because of fate, but because I'd chased Caleb's spark, his story, his soul. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. I'm risking everything for you. Because I didn't want you to hate me, he said, stepping closer, his hazel eyes searching mine. You're the only good thing I've got left, Eli. I couldn't lose that. The air between us was electric, his words hanging like a confession. I wanted to be angry, to walk away, but the pull of him, his vulnerability, his warmth, was too strong. Before I could respond, Julian cleared his throat, breaking the moment. We don't have time for this, he said, glancing at the theater's entrance. Vanessa's tracking you, Caleb. She's got people all over the city. You need to get that flash drive and disappear, both of you. Disappear? I said, my voice rising. I've got a life here, Julian. A job, friends. Not anymore. Julian cut in, his tone blunt. Marcus doesn't care about collateral damage. You're in this now, Eli, whether you like it or not. Caleb's hand found mine, his touch grounding me. I'll fix this, he said, his voice fierce. I'll get the flash drive, turn it over to the feds, anyone who'll listen. But I need you with me, Eli. I can't do this alone. I looked into his eyes, seeing the man beneath the comedian. The one who'd saved me, who'd made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. Where's the flash drive? I asked, my resolve hardening. Back at my old apartment, he said. Uptown. I hid it before I started crashing here. Uptown was a trek, and if Vanessa was watching, it was a risk. But we had no choice. Then we go tonight, I said, squeezing his hand. Together. Julian nodded, pulling a burner phone from his pocket. Take this. I'll try to throw Vanessa off, but you've got maybe a few hours before she figures out you're not here. Move fast. Caleb took the phone, his expression unreadable. Why help us now, Julian? After everything. Julian's eyes softened, a flicker of the friend he used to be. Because I owe you, man. I should have had your back in New York. This is me trying to make it right. He turned to me. Keep him safe, Eli. He's worth it. With that, Julian slipped back into the shadows, leaving us alone on the stage. The theater felt like a cathedral, its silence heavy with the weight of what came next. Caleb turned to me, his hand still in mine. You sure about this? He asked, his voice soft. You could still walk away. Not a chance, I said, managing a small smile. You're stuck with me, Caleb read. His lips twitched, a ghost of his old smirk, and he leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. The closeness sent a shiver through me, his breath warm against my skin. Your trouble, Eli Harper, he murmured, and for a moment, the world was just us, two lost souls on a crumbling stage. But the moment didn't last. We left the theater, slipping into the Pilsen night, the burner phone heavy in my pocket. The cab ride to Uptown was tense, Caleb's knee brushing mine, his eyes scanning every passing car. When we reached his old apartment, a rundown walk-up near the lake. The street was quiet, too quiet. My gut told me we weren't alone. Caleb led me to a loose floorboard in his empty apartment, pulling out a small flash drive. This is it, he said, holding it like it was both salvation and a curse. Before I could respond, a shadow moved outside the window, and my blood ran cold. Someone was watching. Caleb, I whispered, my voice tight. We've got company. The shadow outside Caleb's uptown apartment window was a stark reminder that we were out of time. My heart pounded as I gripped his arm, the flash drive in his hand glinting like a ticking bomb. I'm Eli Harper, a graphic designer who chased a comedian spark and ended up in a Chicago underworld I never imagined. Caleb's hazel eyes met mine, a mix of determination and fear, and I knew this was it. Our last chance to break free from Marcus Kane, Vanessa, and the secrets that had nearly destroyed us. Eli, get down, Caleb whispered, pulling me to the floor as the shadow shifted closer. The apartment was bare, just a creaky floorboard and peeling wallpaper, but it felt like a trap closing around us. The burner phone Julian gave us buzzed in my pocket, and I fumbled to check it. A text from Julian. Vanessa's crew is outside. Get to the roof. I got a way out. Caleb's jaw tightened. You trust him? He asked, his voice low. Not really, I admitted, my mind racing. Julian had betrayed Caleb before, but he'd also risked himself to warn us. But we're out of options. Caleb nodded, pocketing the flash drive. Roof it is. We crept to the door, the distant sound of footsteps in the hallway spurring us on. The fire escape was our only shot, and we climbed the rusted ladder to the roof, the Chicago skyline sprawling under a moonlit sky. The wind whipped at us, carrying the faint hum of Lake Shore Drive, but there was no time to take it in. A figure was already there, waiting, Julian, his auburn curls barely visible under a hoodie. "You're late," Julian said, his voice tense. He pointed to a zip line rigged to a nearby building, a makeshift escape that looked like it belonged in a bad action movie. "This'll get you to the alley. There's a car waiting, friend of mine, owes me a favor." "Move." Caleb hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "Why should I believe you're not setting us up again?" Julian's face softened, guilt etched in his features. "Because I'm done being Marcus's pawn. I got you into this, Caleb. Let me get you out." He glanced at me. "Both of you." A shout from the fire escape cut off any argument. Vanessa's voice, sharp and furious, echoed up. "Caleb, you're only making this worse." Heavy footsteps followed, and my pulse spiked. "Go," Julian urged, practically shoving us toward the zip line. Caleb grabbed the harness, clipping me in first, his hands steady despite the chaos. "Hold on tight," he said, his breath warm against my ear. I nodded, my heart in my throat, and we launched across the gap, the city blurring below. We landed hard in the alley, stumbling but unharmed, and a beat-up sedan peeled up, the driver, a wiry guy with a buzz cut, motioning us in. "Julian's orders," the driver said, gunning the engine as we dove into the back seat. Tires squealed as we sped away, the sound of Vanessa's crew fading into the night. Caleb's hand found mine, his grip tight, and for a moment we just breathed, the adrenaline still coursing through us. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Somewhere safe," the driver said, glancing at us in the rearview. "Julian's got a contact at the FBI. You're meeting them at a diner in Evanston. Hand over the flash drive, and you're done." Caleb's face was unreadable, the flash drive a heavy weight in his pocket. "Done," he repeated, like he was testing the word. After 2 years of running, it doesn't feel real. I squeezed his hand, my own fears bubbling up. "It's real," I said. "We're ending this. Together." The diner in Evanston was a 24-hour joint, all chrome and neon, smelling of coffee and pancakes. The FBI contact, a no-nonsense woman named Agent Torres, was waiting in a corner booth. She had sharp eyes and a clipboard, her demeanor all business as Caleb slid the flash drive across the table. "This better be what you say it is," she said, pocketing it. "Marcus Kane's been on our radar for years. If this checks out, you're clear. Both of you. And if it doesn't?" I asked, my stomach nodding. Torres's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Then you better hope you're good at disappearing." She stood, leaving us with a nod. "Stay low until I call." We sat in silence, the diner's hum a stark contrast to the storm we'd just escaped. Caleb stared at his untouched coffee, his shoulders slumped. "I never thought I'd get this far," he said finally. "I thought I'd be running forever." "You're not running anymore," I said, reaching for his hand. "You're free, or you will be." He looked at me, his hazel eyes soft, vulnerable. "Because of you, Eli. You didn't have to stick with me, but you did." "Why?" I hesitated, the truth spilling out before I could stop it. "Because you're more than a comedian, Caleb. You're you. Flawed, stubborn, brave." I saw that the first night at the loft, and I couldn't let it go. "I don't regret it." His smile was small but real, and he leaned across the table, his forehead brushing mine. "Your trouble, Eli Harper," he said, echoing words from the theater. "And I'm so damn glad you are." The next few days were a blur of waiting, hiding out in a cheap motel on the edge of Evanston. Agent Torres called on the third day, her voice crisp through the burner phone. "The ledger's legit. Kane's in custody, Vanessa too. You're in the clear, but keep your heads down. Kane's got friends." Relief hit like a wave, but it was bittersweet. Caleb was free, but the life he'd built as Caleb Monroe was gone. And me? I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross, my quiet Chicago life, forever changed. We left the motel, stepping into a new reality, one where we could finally breathe. A week later, we were back at the Laughing Loft, not as fugitives, but as patrons sitting at a table near the stage. The club felt different now, its dim lights warm instead of oppressive. Caleb wasn't performing. He wasn't sure he ever would again, but he was here, beside me, his hand resting lightly on my knee. The MC, Todd, gave us a nod like he knew we'd been through something but wasn't asking. As I watched the new acts, I thought about how far I'd come. I'd started this chasing a spark, a fleeting obsession with comedians who bare their souls. But it wasn't just about the stage anymore. It was about Caleb, about fighting for something real, about learning that love, messy, risky, raw, was worth the cost. I'd faced danger, betrayal, and my own fears, and I'd come out stronger, not because I was fearless, but because I'd chosen to keep going. Looking back, I realized the biggest lesson wasn't about courage or trust, though those mattered. It was about seeing people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. Caleb had been a mystery, a performer hiding behind a fake name, but he'd let me in, and that vulnerability had changed us both. I'd learned to listen to my heart, even when it led me into chaos, and to fight for the people who made me feel alive. As the crowd laughed at a rookie comic's shaky set, I turned to Caleb, his profile soft in the stage light. "What now?" I asked, my voice quiet. He smiled, his hand tightening on mine. "We figure out, together." And for the first time, I believed we would. To you, reading this, I've got a question. If you were in my shoes, caught between a safe life and a dangerous love, with secrets and threats closing in, how would you choose? Would you chase the spark, risk it all for someone who makes your heart race, or walk away to protect yourself? What's the best way to balance love and safety when the stakes are life and death?